Wingstop.
This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game.
Coming at you live in the heart of Lincoln, America.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
On air and online at theticketfm.com. Here are your hosts, Jake Bakoven and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
This is the Ticket Water Cooler here on a Friday. We are that close to Husker football, just a week away about. It is a Good Sense Friday here on 93.7 The Tickets. We'd like to give a shout out to those guys. If you're hungry, go to Good Sense, or you can go to Wingstop, which sponsors the Ticket Water Cooler every day. We've got Nick Stainert in here with me as Rico busy being a dad today. Nick, how's it going?
What's up? How's it going?
Oh, not too bad. Just anxiously awaiting football season.
We're 7 or 8 days away, right? So
yeah, I'd say 7 days in wake up. I like
7 days. Okay, perfect. And like next week, here's the thing: is you're gonna really start to feel it like next Monday when you start to see pictures and things of the guys in Ireland, and you start to really get to talk to people. We'll hear from Scott Frost for one final time before they leave for Ireland on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Well, it's kind of weird too, because the week 0, this is the second year you kind of have to get used to this, because what I'm used to is watching week 0 games and just kind of thinking, okay, now college football is here, and then still counting down to Nebraska.
This is the week 0 game.
Yeah.
Like we're forgetting that. Like the other good game, I think, is Illinois and Wyoming, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good game.
So yeah, if you would like that game.
Brett Bielema.
I would not watch that game if I was forced to. So
you're not going to watch it?
Probably
That's a
not.
future opponent, Nick. You got to do some scouting.
No, I'm out on that. But I'm out on Illinois, Wyoming, especially in week 0. But I mean, this is the game, and I'm really looking forward to next week. Like we're starting to get the itch, and with all these comments coming out with the whole vomit and everything, like Nebraska just needs to play a game. Like we're just to that point where it's like, all right, we're grasping at straws here. We just need to play a game.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Let's get into that with actually Brian Munson of On3 Sports, who's going to join us every Friday here on the Ticket Water Cooler. How's it going, Brian?
Hey, guys, what's up? Yeah, it's 6 days in a wake up. You're making it out to make it be way worse than what it really is.
6 days?
6 in a wake up, man.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's tough to do math. Do you count today? Yeah, I guess you don't really count today. But in any case, Brian, how do you think of the timing kind of sets in here for Scott Frost to name his starter last night? Casey Thompson, the starting quarterback for Nebraska, something we all kind of expected, waited for, but it's just the timing is more interesting than anything. Do you like when he names him the starting quarterback?
Obviously, I think that it was bound to happen here sooner or later. I feel I have to rally behind it. Apparently, Casey has done enough in practices so far this fall camp to basically be, to be that leader, to be named the starter. It sounds like there's been a little bit of an improvement when it comes to throwing and velocity and stuff like that. So I'm glad that it looks like at least, Nebraska was, they didn't have a lot of options coming out of spring ball, and they certainly wish they would have had a better look at a few of the guys. But then they get this fall camp. There's really not an injury, or so to speak, around him. So he gets a chance to kind of compete full gut. And at least he went out there and didn't lose it. And it seems like he's claimed a spot. So if this is not as good a scenario as what Nebraska fans could hope, is that there is a guy that Nebraska is looking forward to putting out there on Saturday. He will begin the week preparing as a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. But obviously I think that there's to be said about, I think particular about how close this might have been, particularly, even with a guy like with Logan Smothers. I think Smothers put up a pretty fierce, effort to try to put himself and keep himself in contention there with two transfer portal guys coming in that, you could have easily gone, well, I'm no longer the guy here. And he just let that happen. He's just too competitive a guy. And obviously Purdy is somebody I think that we're still going to see this fall.
Brian, I guess when we're looking at kind of the way that Nebraska's staff is going to manage their personnel, and especially at the quarterback position, now that we know Casey Thompson is QB1, and like you said, I think it's very valuable that he's going to be able to prepare that way. But I think there needs to be there needs to be a shorter leash, but still with patience, if that makes sense. And so, how fine of a line is that if you're a head coach in a season that Nebraska is facing with all the pressure? How fine of a line is it, and how much of a judgment call will this coaching staff have to make if they eventually have to make a change or not?
It's such a great question, and it's such a complicated one, because the fine line you're kind of describing is going between, it will be evaluated almost on a series by series basis, and where you're looking at from the percentages of being successful, winning the game that week, to where you want to go ahead and make a change with the quarterback in flight to make sure that you can go out there and do what's best to try to win the football game. But then you have to consider what the psychology that goes along with that can be. When you go into then, the film room on Sunday to start breaking things down, when you make that change at quarterback, and then what happens then the following week? Do you rally around a guy, or are you now trying to figure out, all things brand new, looking at everything else kind of going into next week? And I think that obviously that fine line is going to be there a lot more in week 1 and week 2, because I think Nebraska really does want to roll out who they feel like is quarterback one. From what they've seen so far, this quarterback, has it been on the field, playing in a competitive game? No, it hasn't been. I think that obviously things are changed. You can only do so much to kind of fully simulate, but I think that you want to go out there then still and keep that confidence, but obviously know when you have to go ahead and make that decision to make a change.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because obviously the story coming out of that was that Casey was the starter, but he did say he wouldn't be surprised if more than one quarterback plays. Do you see that as maybe like a goal line package or spot play if the game gets out of hand, or do you kind of see that as what Michigan's doing? Jim Harbaugh said they're probably going to keep the quarterback battle going on through the start of the season.
Well, I think I think it would be more like the latter. I think Nebraska has. Look, my understanding of looking back at the last, the Adrian Martinez days has been that, only until last year or the year before, were things even kind of competitive in Lincoln. It was really his job only, and everybody else was there just kind of in the room. Now I think in kind of respect, everybody is kind of looking back at that, and they're finding faults. They're finding reasons to doubt, kind of protect that starting quarterback. Are you really preparing and getting the guy ready for the guy ready for the game on Saturday or the game that week? And I think there's some good reason to doubt that. When you have that doesn't have any pressure, that doesn't need to kind of go out there and just do anything other than just kind of show up, which I'm not. That's what happened. But I mean, if I'm going to strip this thing down and make it as simple as possible, that's what it really becomes. You want competitiveness and competitive reps happening every single day of the work week, getting ready for Saturday. Everything is meaningful. You can't have someone say, well, I'll get that better next time when it comes Saturday or whatever, and kind of blow it off. You have to have importance and be disciplined to that every single rep of every single practice. So I think that there's been faults in ways in how Nebraska kind of kept Martinez protected at times when it comes to being the starting quarterback. And I think Nebraska needs to try a little edgier of a way to kind of get the quarterback room ready every single week.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think the big storyline to come out of Scott Frost's media appearance last night was the quote about he's saying that he laughed because that there's probably 15 to 20 vomits from the offensive linemen every day. People ran with this in all sorts of different directions. How did you read that comment?
I read it the way that the workouts every day are still meaningful. They have a conditioning edge to them. They're being pushed. They haven't got through just the portion of, hey, let's make sure that you're in shape to go ahead and start fall camp. And once you've kind of been peaked, we don't have to worry about anything else. It seems like there's been an ongoing need to kind of continue the conditioning side and pushing some guys, particularly in that offensive line room, to get those guys ready for the in which offense wants to run at this fall. And there's no problem with that. That's a pretty natural reaction when it comes to working hard, particularly with us fat body guys. That just kind of typically happens when you're you're pushing yourself a lot. The weather is there on your shoulders as well. It's one of those things. Of course, you drink your water too fast, it happens. But I really view that as that's a guy whose intensity for keeping up the conditioning side, keeping up the pace side, how quickly we want to operate in the fall in mind, as opposed to, okay, go over there. Now we're going to talk about this for 45 seconds and be in really that kind of game setting, huddle, quick pace, like they're going to want to do when it comes to this fall.
And is that still the position you're probably going to be looking at the most once Nebraska plays Northwestern? I mean, it might be hard to get that read because obviously the offensive line dominated Northwestern last year, but to me, that's still the area. And I thought it was just kind of interesting. Scott Frost was saying, just kind of talking about depth in all different areas and even include the offensive line, which is probably my biggest concern where depth is kind of piling up. Is that kind of similar to your thinking, or do you worry about another position on the field?
No. I think it starts up front because I think that portion that's up front has taken has impacted the play of the running back position. It's impacted the quarterback position. It's impacted flow of the entire offense. It's one of those things that has to be cleaned up. It has to get better for Nebraska to have much possibility to be successful this year. So that is really where it starts for me. I mean, other than kind of switching to the defense and seeing how they kind of compare as a unit, because you had so much seniority, you had all those super seniors last year, you had really great players that you're trying to find placements for, but you bring back a lot of guys, and there's a lot of interesting transfers that kind of get thrown into the mix as well. Some compelling storylines on defense. Nothing to me is more compelling than the way that Nebraska is going to start up front and how basically do going forward. Nebraska's knee, how do things kind of flush out with the interior guys. What about Leonhardt and Corcoran? What kind of rotation are those guys going to be in? There's some really interesting storylines just there on those five positions.
We're speaking to Brian Munson of On3.com. If you had to lay out your starting five up front, Brian, whichever position you want to start with, I just think it's so fascinating because you have a list of guys like we were kind of talking about. Trent Hickson, who got, has been here for a long time, just hasn't been able to see consistent playing time. Brock Bando, a similar situation there. And Teddy Prohaska, who for the small sample size that we saw last year was productive, but we don't know how he's going to be bouncing back from his injury. As he kind of mentioned a couple weeks ago when we got to talk to him, that just being back healthy is different than being in game shape, if that makes sense. So if you had to lay out your starting five up front for the offensive line, who would be making the cut?
It's hard for me to kind of disagree with what this morning, talking, or if you go back to the tunnel talk this morning, Steve Sipple, I thought, did a great job of really outlining things when it comes to the offensive line. And I don't really disagree with it too much. I mean, you got Teddy at left. I think you put her then at your left guard. Hickson, I guess he would probably get that nod at set. Interested in seeing what Brock Bando can do. I think that is a guy that's been from Lincoln off to IMG, brought back to Nebraska. I think there's some really interesting things that are kind of going on with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he kind of reacts there at right guard. And then Leonhardt at right tackle. I think that spot, I think that guy right there, circle Bryce Leonhardt, and how he has kind of responded to criticism, being jockeyed around, being tackled and being forced inside, some inconsistent play, and now how he has kind of emerged on this other side. I've really heard some really positive things with how he has done so far this fall camp. I'm really interested in seeing how he does, out there against a Big Ten opponent.
Well, and obviously all this line talk is kind of talking about getting protection for the quarterback and getting those running backs a room to run. I think it's kind of interesting when you look at last year where Jacquez Yant, that was kind of his game. He kind of broke out against Northwestern. Would you think that maybe you look at that matchup last year and don't go away from what worked? Or do you think you kind of just let the camp battle play out? Whoever you thought was number 1A on the running back list, that you would throw them out there. It's a new year. We've seen that work out in the past, but at the same time, you kind of think I always kind of think about Illinois, where Adrian always had a lot of success against Illinois, and then 2 years ago they didn't start him against them, they lost, and then you're thinking, well, I don't know if that was the right decision.
That's an interesting call. I think actually Big Ten just had that as kind of like the Big Ten game of the week or whatever for Nebraska at Northwest. I think I just watched it last week. So that game's very fresh in my mind. Yant tore him up, and he not only had like the hard plays that he's going to be asked to do with being a bigger back, but he broke some big runs.
Oh yeah.
That being said, you've got a different guy in the room when it comes to Coach Applewhite when he's kind of seeing things over. You've added 3 new guys to the room. You're bringing back a guy that started football games like in Ramir Johnson. You've obviously got Yamp there that had a huge game last week. You've got A.J. Allen who's going to see time, and of course your JUCO All-American and Anthony Grant. The room is incredibly talented, and I think that Nebraska, given the changes that they're kind of looking for to bring out on the offense, to be more consistent, to work within the flow of what that offensive staff is trying to do, they have to trust their judgment of what they've seen so far through the spring and through the fall to think that that's going to be the way that they have to go. But just know they got a lot of horses in that room, and there's some guys that can really carry the football and do some great things for the offense.
Well, and sometimes it could be coach speak, but as I was pointing out earlier, Scott Frost really was highlighting the depth that they have at all these different areas. When I look at last year's team as opposed to this year's team, I do think there's a lot of losses on there. I mean, Cam Jurgens and Samari Toure and Austin Allen and Cam Taylor-Britt and Damian Daniels. I mean, the list just seems to keep going on and on. Do you, and we've had the talk about which team's more talented. Do you think there's more depth on this year's team, and that might be what gets them over the hump rather than top end talent from one team to the other?
I think that there's some truth to that. I think the top end talent last year was probably a little bit better on last year's team. But I think that the depth, I think that, maybe there's still some questions of what we're going to kind of anticipate when it comes to this offense, and what do they do, and are they continually still snake bitten when it kind of goes down there trying to make a play when they're down by a few points, or they're trying to protect the lead, and what's going to happen with special teams. Look, if you just shore up special teams, that's like 3 wins. So figure that part out, and then kind of go in there, then change the mentality. We're a touchdown up. Let's just pour it on, and defending your house. Make Memorial Stadium still the toughest place or make it again one of the toughest places to go in there and win a football game. So I don't think that that's happened in quite some time, and I think that that's what they need to kind of get back to. But I think that what they need to kind of really what they need to do is worry about what makes them different. I think it is depth, and I do expect them to rotate in a lot more guys. There's been a lot of talk on that defensive front. That's why Devin Drew getting there to Lincoln this last week was huge. He gives them another set of legs they can roll out there, and he obviously has had an impact in a very short amount of time. So I think depth is better this year.
We're talking to Brian Munson of On3 Sports. One more question for you. Just when you thought you could get away from conference realignment and expansion and all that, we heard from today the Big Ten's Kevin Warren told HBO Sports that he sees the Big Ten having 20 members and paying players down the line. The paying players thing was a whole different can of worms we could open up, but let's just stick with the 20 members of the Big Ten. There was a lot of heat there on Washington and Oregon. It's kind of the leftovers of the Pac-10, Pac-12, or there's 10 teams in the Pac-12 now, but that just continues to confuse things, as has been the case the last several years with the conference. But in any case, the Pac-12 as it is. Do you think that you like the Big Ten's approach, knowing they want 20 teams, but maybe kind of not just jumping at anything that just kind of pops up once they got USC and UCLA?
Yeah, I do. I think the selectivity here now is really going about refining what you're trying to do as a conference. Where are you lacking? What can you go out there and address? Obviously, I think that you went out there and you kind of grabbed the cream of the crop when it comes to the Pac-12. People probably would argue with me a little bit, and I think UCLA Board of Regents are going to probably have to try to have a say with that one too, to see if they're going to let them go. But all that being said, if you grab those two and you turn back around, the Big Ten then should continue to evaluate. They should go back and figure out what kind of makes sense moving forward. You've got some schools out there that have got some potential that when it really comes to kind of adding things in, but it's maybe not necessarily, maybe it's grabbing a school that has a little bit more basketball tradition, and that's a little bit different of how things have kind of moved forward. I know Nebraska has lived up really to the hype of when they moved over from the Big 12. But all that being said, that's not the way it was supposed to be. So if that's the case, and you're kind of eyeing a KU, for example, it needs to be something that needs to be thought about. It needs to be thinking about and understanding what the SEC is also trying to do. Super conferences, it's definitely coming. And I think the next thing that comes after that is probably understanding that there isn't a lot of value with the NCAA anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the next thing that's going to come out of this whole thing is once the super conferences have aligned and they set their number, what does the NCAA do for you now? And the answer to that question is not much.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. It sounds like college football playoff might be the new governing committee as the postseason there, but that's fascinating. We'll certainly talk about that as the months to come. Oh, before I let you go, of course, we should probably ask about recruiting. Obviously, the game in Ireland, is that doing anything for recruits? What's kind of going on in the recruiting world?
It doesn't really do a lot for recruiting. We're obviously watching Monroe, Louisiana here in the next couple of weeks. Alan's heard. He'll be making a decision. He's down to like a top 4, top 5. I really feel like this is a decision between LSU and Nebraska, to be honest with you. I think LSU's got the upper hand. Ryan Robinson, another guy from Edna Carr High School in Louisiana, going to be making a decision here in the coming weeks. Cameron Leonhardt, he and I caught up. He's still toying with, making a commitment date. He doesn't sound like he's necessarily firm on getting it done before the month of September comes around. So kind of played that one a little loose. I don't think people should get too worried about that yet. And then I think things are going to open up. I think Nebraska will start re-looking at some guys in their first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. You could see some offers trickle out to running back, offensive tackle, potentially defensive tackle. But then I think after that, Nebraska's really in that mode of playing the portal transfer and seeing what else kind of comes through.
All right, very cool. Thanks again, Brian Munson of On3 Sports, joining us here every Friday as we get into the football season. Thanks again, Brian.
Have a great weekend, guys.
All right, there he goes. We will have a great weekend, but not as great as we will the next several weekends. It's kind of the last weekend, and obviously for people covering Husker media, to have off to a degree. Are you gonna celebrate?
I'm just gonna kind of hang around the house this weekend. Well, just kidding. Nate and I are going to the boats tomorrow, so that's not really hanging around the house. But
no.
So nothing too crazy. Gonna enjoy the last weekend off till December.
Relaxing might be the key there. Let's take a quick break here on the Ticket Water Cooler, brought to you by Wingstop. We'll be right back here on the Ticket.
Bauer Infrastructure is a new name from a well-established brand, and they're paving the way to progress. And they're hiring. Bauer Infrastructure is hiring truck drivers, carpenters, truck mechanics, and equipment operators. And they have industry-leading benefits to maintain a work-life balance. Bauer offers paid time off and paid holidays, a matching 401k plan, medical, dental, vision, life, and disability insurance, a clothing allowance, and more. Start your new career today by applying at BauerInfrastructure.com.
Problem gambling affects more than the gambler. It affects spouses, children, extended family members, and friends. If you are a loved one who's struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 476-2300.
Hey, Steve. Welcome to Great Clips.
Great Clips asks, what's the difference between good and great?
Come on back and have a seat.
Good asks you what haircut you'd like.
I have all your details from last time. Would you like the same haircut today?
Great already knows. With Clip Notes, we save your haircut details so you can get the same thing as last time, every time. Download our online check-in app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
You work way too hard to blend in. It's time for your business to stand out from the crowd. Revolution Wraps takes your image to the next level with professional, high-quality vehicle wraps, signage, interior graphics, trade show displays, and plenty more. They do it all in-house, from design to print to installation. Call Revolution Wraps in either Lincoln or Omaha for a free quote today at 402-475-2886. Or see what they can do for your business online at revolutionwraps.com. Revolution Wraps. Start something big.
Hey, batter, batter, batter. Wings, splatter, splatter, splatter. Catch all this season's baseball action at one of your neighborhood Lincoln locations. Get League of Their Own wings, burgers, nachos, and ringers while catching all the action. Stop into Wings and Rings located on O Street in Meridian Park and 40th and Old Cheney in Williamsburg Village. Or place your order online at wingsandrings.com. That's wingsandrings.com. Buffalo Wings and Rings.
From selling a home to even building one, you're doing a lot and need a lender who can help you do it. Like Elizabeth Rezac of Security First Bank.
With over 25 years of experience as a mortgage loan officer, I take pride in helping borrowers find the right loan for their next home.
Mortgage lending from Security First Bank. We're the bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 505011 and 483558.
Nebraska fans, it's almost time for college football season. Brokers Insurance Agency in Lincoln is a proud donor of Nebraska athletics. Brokers Insurance Agency is located at 33rd and A Streets in the heart of Lincoln. At Brokers, they can help you with all your insurance needs. Let them worry about your insurance so you have more time to enjoy the college football season. Call one of their licensed agents today at 402-420-5353 or visit their website at brokersinsurancene.com. Go Big Red.
Your home should not be a zoo to unwelcomed animals. Let the experts at Bats to Rats take care of those problems. Dane has been a leader in wildlife and pest management and prevention in Lincoln and the surrounding area for 15 years. He can help you get rid of bats, rodents, and anything else. Whether it's residential or commercial buildings, schools, apartments, or churches, they're always a phone call away. Call today at 402-310-0904 or visit batstoRats.com. Bats to Rats Wildlife Control and Prevention.
This message is for Shauna, my mom who just finished her high school diploma. I wanted to say I'm so proud of you for finishing school. You taught me it's never too late to achieve your dreams. I hope to make you as proud as you have made me.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
If you have concerns about your drinking water, just call Bryant. If your water doesn't look right, smell right, or taste right, Bryant can help. If your water has high levels of iron, Bryant can help. If you're tired of foggy dishes and dingy clothes, Bryant can help. Whatever your home water needs are, Bryant is here with a solution to fit your needs. Be sure about your water. Just call 467-1111. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. We do whatever it takes.
Back to the Ticket Water Cooler, brought to you by Wingstop on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are rocking out here on a Friday, and it is a Good Sense Friday here at 93.7 The Ticket. This is the Ticket Water Cooler. Of course, Good Sense Friday means that they fed us, so we very much enjoyed that. Thanks to them. Stop by any of their locations today. Also, if that doesn't sound like exactly what you want, Wingstop would be the other option there, because Wingstop sponsors the Ticket Water Cooler. Kind of interesting. I wanted to get to some response off the text line. Wet Blanket says, please explain to me this depth take. Why would a team with good depth bring in 15 transfers, 8 who they plan to start? This improved depth take defies evidence, is based purely on coaches' comments who have been selling this narrative for the past 4 years. Name me 2 players not expect to start that have proven to be productive at a Big Ten level. Well, that's what I was kind of asking is basically, do you buy it? Because Scott Frost was kind of talking about depth that they have all around the field. I think there are certain positions in plenty of them, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, sound like safety in the nickel position. They can't even pick a starter. There's enough guys back there. So there's certain position that there's a lot of depth. As far as bringing in, those transfers, that's how you've managed to get all the depth, is that you brought in a lot of different guys at the wide receiver position or the running back position, the quarterback position. And so certainly I think that there are still several positions that you want to see more depth, but Frost said this last night. We've got a lot of guys up front that I think it can play and be interchangeable. And he was just kind of talking about the depth at all the positions. That's where I started to kind of think, well, if you're giving me the coach speak thing on offensive line, because I know from just looking at the optics of it, it doesn't look like there's a lot of depth there. They did bring in some transfers. Maybe we can see it play out. But that's kind of my question is, are you buying this depth take while at the same time understanding there are certain positions on the field that without a question, there's plenty of depth.
Well, I think as sad as it is to say, and what Blanket makes a good point about proven production, right? You wouldn't go to the transfer portal if you were deep and you had proven production returning. and things like that. But I guess across the board, maybe depth needs the way that it's being thrown around so loosely around Nebraska football. I think that it's more of just there's bodies in that room, right? In the running back room, for example, there's just bodies, and not saying that's a good thing, right? Because that does nothing for you production wise. But I guess then there's the potential discussion, like that we're all sick and tired of. Like we're not alone on this, right? We're tired of hearing about the potential of guys in the room and then seeing them not pan out or seeing them transfer and things like that. But I also, like, once again, Buck, I told you this off the air. You're just at a situation, and we're going to continue this into the happy hour with myself. And it's like Nebraska's at a situation where they just need to play a game because everything that's being said right now is actually just being tossed around in a negative way, whether it's depth, whether it's the vomit comment, whether it's the starting quarter, like everything's being talked about in a negative way and saying that, oh, well, how is this different than last year? Literally, they just need to play a game. Like that is just what Nebraska needs. That's what Nebraska fans need. And honestly, that's what we need. Because then that's all that matters, because everything that happened, the vomit comment, whoever's the starting quarterback, whoever the starting running back is, all the fall stories, all the spring stories, they go by the wayside because they don't mean anything if it doesn't happen on Saturdays, as we know.
Yeah. And I mean, there's without games, all you can really do is, read into the comments and try to believe into them. But I've said it all offseason. The reason why I haven't really budged from my 6-6 take is that I'm not going to be fooled by offseason Kool-Aid this year. I'm going to need to see it on the field. So without a doubt, there is a point where you actually have to see it to believe it. I'm certainly in that category. But at the same time, I mean, these are the guys that are working closely with the team. So it's not so much believing everything they say, but when Frost says you might see two quarterbacks, that's interesting.
There's also part of me, like to Wet Blanket's thing, named me two players not expected to start that have proven to be productive at the Big Ten level. My response to that is, if they're productive or proven at the Big Ten level, why wouldn't you want them to start? Why wouldn't they be able to be? Why wouldn't they start? All the guys that are sitting behind the bench or sitting on the bench would be guys that haven't produced or aren't producing or aren't projected to produce. Like, so to name two guys that are not expected to start that have proven to be productive at the Big Ten level, that's really difficult, because Nebraska's not Alabama where they have a 5-star sitting on their bench. They're not Ohio State where Marvin Harrison Jr. is just waiting his turn for Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson to graduate. That's just not the situation that Nebraska finds himself in. Rico says Ty Robinson, but Ty Robinson's expected to start.
Yeah.
Yes. Ty Robinson is going to start interior.
Yeah, I would believe so. I mean, I think that there is certainly depth at some position, not there at others. But it seems to be in a better place than it was a few years ago. Now, all that being said, that's all because of the transfer class. So you have to remember, this is among the most transfers in the nation, basically in the first year of this wide open transfer class, this free agency. So it's a new experiment, not just for Nebraska, but for college football. This Nebraska team is. Let's take a quick break. We'll wrap up the Ticket Water Cooler coming up next here on 93.7 The Ticket. Jake Bakoven here, and I want to tell you about my friends at Solarion. We're always trying to grow and try new things in life, and maybe this year is a chance to learn about how you can participate in a research study with Solarion. I've helped with their studies for many years and keep going back for many reasons. First off, the staff always treats me well, and they're really knowledgeable and informative, which gives me the comfort to keep going back. And it's up to you on how frequently you participate. Whether you're male or female, if you're at least 19 years of age, you may be eligible. If you're curious about how to earn up to $500 per day by participating in a research study at Solarion, check them out at helpresearch.com/new or call them at 866-213-2965. Once again, that's Solarion at 866-213-2965 or at helpresearch.com/new.
Imagine your next staff meeting. Now imagine your next staff meeting with a side of ribs. Your next client presentation, or that same client presentation with brisket and baked beans. It's better, right? Let Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul take care of all of your business catering needs. Feed the staff, cater your next event, whatever you need, Mary Ellen's can help. They can even host your events in their brand new event space located right next to the restaurant. Go see for yourself. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul at 29th and Pine Lake or online at maryellens.com. Let them fix you a plate.
The fall sports season is here, and Brown Shoe Fit is celebrating that with a sale on athletic shoes. From now through the end of August, get $10 off any regular priced athletic shoe up to $105, and get $15 off shoes regularly priced at over $105. These are shoe brands including New Balance, Brooks, Hoka, and On. Gear up for the busy fall season today with the athletic shoe sale at Brown Shoe Fit, located at 66th and Q.
If you want to make new floor shopping easier, come to O Street Carpet. Hi, I'm Steve Carper. Our flooring professionals can help you choose the best flooring for you, your family, and your budget. We eliminate the confusion. Even better, you'll be enjoying your new flooring much sooner. No 6 or 8 week waits. We'll install right away and save you money on installation. Floor shopping made easy every day at O Street Carpet. O Street Carpet. 1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now they've raised wages again and they're hiring for production operators at $22.58 per hour. And other select jobs is starting at $24.28 per hour, with wages growing up to $30.30 per hour. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates. To learn more or to apply, go to continental-jobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
Get a lot of advice about self-care these days, but one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Back to the Ticket Water Cooler. Brought to you by Wingstop on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Wrapping up things here on the Ticket Water Cooler to make way for the happy hour. Of course, Nick Sander will be ready for that. We'll see if Rico is going to jump in. I believe he will.
Oh, yeah, he will.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was going to be here. He had an appointment to go to, and so I didn't know if he was fully going to be here, but he's going to be here, so we'll have him in there.
Well, great stuff. So that you got that to look forward to. Before we get out of here for the Ticket Water Cooler, I did want to kind of mention what Kevin Warren said to HBO Sports today, that the Big Ten is planning on having 20 members. It's something that I think a lot of people were kind of thinking, but to hear it from Kevin Warren himself, that's super conferences. That's kind of getting more into that area where you kind of think about the amount of teams that are currently in the Power Five. You might have 3 major conferences there. Maybe it boils down to 2 major conferences. I just hope that this whole thing, because as Brian Munson was kind of saying in our talk with him, the NCAA seems like it's losing power. The College Football Playoff Committee kind of brought it up as far as a couple days ago as kind of a story as well, that for the first time, there's like 10 minutes of saying, hey, maybe we don't need the NCAA. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is the power that can be moving forward. So college football is still just kind of up in the air what the future looks like. But with Kevin Warren saying 20 teams, what I was most interested in there is that the talks with the Pac-12 remaining teams have kind of dissipated to a degree. I don't think that they feel like they have to jump on and get Oregon or Washington or whoever it may be, just to get to 20, just to do it. I think they feel like if they need them, they can get them. They can, as long as they don't sign like these deals that, the kind of the land grant deals that ink them in with the Pac-12 or whatever, and them kind of reading the room, understanding that wouldn't be a good idea at this point in time. They can get them when they need them. So I'm interested. It all seems to be just kind of waiting on Notre Dame. Where do you go from there? I've said it before. I think you need a couple Southern teams. If you want to make the California new guys come out and feel like they've got some teams around them regionally to play, that's fine. But I think you go nationwide with this thing. I think ultimately, if you're the Big Ten, you grab a couple teams from the South. Mainly, I'm talking about the ACC. If you could obviously get, a Clemson, Florida State, any of those, Miami, whatever, that would be ideal. They might go to the SEC. But even without that, I'd still kind of get the leftovers of the ACC if it ends up being that way. Just because on the field, the demographics have just moved to the South. That's where
Yeah.
the best high school football is. That's where all the recruits are going over the last 20, 25 years. That's where all the championships are run. I think the Big Ten needs a Southern presence to kind of wrap up the nationwide conference that they already have from coast to coast. Just needs to go a little bit more north-south in my mind.
I think also what it shows is that the Big Ten is aware of what's going on. Like it shows awareness on Kevin Warren's part. It shows that they understand that this is the direction that college football and college athletics are heading. And I think it's a good thing that they are aware and that they're at the front, right? Because you want to be at the front rather than at the back. And I think it shows, like I said, awareness on Kevin Warren to come out and be like, listen, we acknowledge that this is where things are going. We acknowledge that we're going to have to continue adding teams. And once again, like they signed a 7-year Big Ten media rights deal in 2030, it'll end in 2030, same year that Notre Dame's ends. And it just feels like there's too perfect of a possibility that those two entities unite, right? And then once Notre Dame comes, like the Big Ten is going to be the most attractive conference in college football, if not already.
Boy, the SEC, I mean, the SEC is
it's so
be
top
right
heavy
there.
though, Bach.
I don't know what that argument is. There's so many. Every conference is pretty top heavy.
I do not agree. Like if you match up Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, okay, maybe not Michigan because that's probably the top of the conference. Like a Penn State, and I don't know if you're sold on Michigan State or not. If you put those teams paired up with like the Tennessees and South Carolinas.
But tell me their ceiling. Tell me Iowa's ceiling. Tell me Wisconsin's ceiling.
The same ceiling that's Tennessee's.
It's not the same ceiling as Auburn or Florida that have won titles in the last 15
Florida's
years.
been bad the last 5 years.
Florida fires.
They got Billy Napier, who might turn it around from Louisiana Lafayette, but they went through McElwain. They went through Mullen. Mullen was a great coach. He had 1 year of like a less than 500 record, and they fired him.
They also had Muschamp. You know what all three of those guys did that they fired? Win the SEC East. Florida is the one team that's standing out there, and you might not like how short of a leash they have if you have 1 or 2 bad weeks, which Mullen, that started to kind of snowball.
Yeah.
But that's what Florida is. Florida's not going to be okay with having a down year. And so I don't know. Eventually that might blow up on him. But what I'm telling you is that you can say that they're top heavy here and there, but like, because if LSU has a bad season here and there, but I'm telling you, LSU, Florida, Auburn, these are teams that have won championships. So when I talk about the ceiling of the conference there, you just have a long way to argue with me to tell me even, Penn State and Michigan maybe be on that line that I could see eventually having the ceiling to play for national championships, but they haven't done it in the last 15, 20 years.
Like, I just don't know how you can compare ceilings. Like, for example, so Florida, they're not like, I would go as far as saying Florida is not even the best team in the state of Florida. By a land, like I think UCF has the better coach and has the better team.
But it's not going to stay that way for the long
How do you know? It's Gus Malzahn, a guy that's been in a national championship. UCF's going to be a Power 5 school.
Because if Florida wants Gus Malzahn, they can get him.
Can they?
Yeah.
Really? Can they?
I would believe so, yeah.
I don't know,
if
man.
They wanted
not
Gus
with a short
Malzahn
leash.
over Billy Napier, they probably would have. But I think Billy Napier has got a better ceiling himself, or at least a more unknown ceiling than what Malzahn has done. I don't know. Either way, I don't want to get into the bickering points of the Big Ten and the SEC. They're gigantic brands. And when the Big Ten or when the SEC's television contract comes up, it's going to do as good or as well or even better than the Big Ten. And that's why you see these two super conferences there. But I don't understand at this point. Like maybe 2012, 13, you could try to argue me that the SEC is not the best conference. Guys, it's been a long time
at the top
of
it is.
SEC dominance.
At the top, it is the best conference.
Well, what are you
nobody's
talking about?
arguing that.
Why do you want to have the best 7 and 6 team?
Well, it's about balance. It's about creating intriguing matchups, not only at the top when you're talking about Ohio State, Michigan, but also at the like in the middle when you're talking about right now, as much as it pains you to say, Nebraska and Purdue.
Put Nebraska in the middle, thanks.
As much as it pains you to say, like, is Nebraska at the top of the Big Ten?
Well, I would say more toward the bottom in the standings.
So then if they're in the bottom, I'm way more interested in a Nebraska Purdue game than a Vanderbilt Missouri game.
Okay, but
come on.
Kentucky beat Iowa last year in a bowl game. There's your middle of the Big Ten. It's the middle of the SEC. And you can give me counter examples. I'm just saying, like, Texas A&M, Florida. These are Texas A&M's right there again. Florida was there a few years ago in the top 5, even pushed Alabama last year. These are intriguing brands in teams that can jump up. Ole Miss is really good. I mean, there's just a lot in the SEC, and I get viewed as an SEC apologist or favorite. That like I favor the SEC. I love the Big Ten, guys. That's my favorite conference by far, and I can't wait for the new thing to take off. At the same time, I'm just being realistic. The SEC has dominated, and if you want to talk about depth, eventually you can kind of get down maybe to have some sort of halfway argument. But the depth of the Big Ten, it's not like it doesn't drop off eventually either. It's not like the Big Ten at the bottom with Indiana and Rutgers and all those teams are just, you can argue whether they beat Vanderbilt or whatever. I don't think that's where you define where a conference is.
From a top to bottom standpoint, once USC and UCLA join the Big Ten, they will be, from a top to bottom standpoint, balance wise, even with Oklahoma and Texas, they will be the better conference.
You're out of your mind. You've lost.
Buck, I'm serious, man. From top to bottom.
I don't understand. And that's what you want. That's where you want to wave your flag.
Balance,
I guess, if that's what you want to do. I'm talking championships. Why aren't you talking championships?
And I understand that championships are the thing. Like, we get this on the text line, and I completely agree. Recruits only care about championships. But here's the thing. If you are, let's say you're Michigan State in this situation right now, if you're Michigan State in this situation right now, you're able to go tell a recruit, you are the recruit that takes us to that championship level. It's not like, once again, you talk about having better talent from top to bottom. That's the thing.
It's not just like who beats each other in the middle. This is like All-Americans, NFL draft picks. I'm sure I haven't looked at it, but Heisman trophies over the last several years, championships. There's just all the top end metrics lean to the SEC. And again, it's not my fault. I'm not the bad guy for being the messenger. That's just how it is. That's just how it's been. All the top recruits, all the top recruiting classes. It is what it is. I don't like it. I want to see the Big Ten have a resurgence. I want to see Ohio State have a fighting partner. That's why I want to see Michigan be as good as they were last year, to continue that. But I'm not foolish enough to think that even, like, again, I mentioned the ceilings of some of the Big Ten West teams. Guys, I love the Big Ten West. It's going to be hard for me to see Wisconsin, no matter what they do, ever being what Texas A&M could be. I just don't see it. So, yeah, Southern Cal helps. USC doesn't do a whole lot for you right now. And when you're comparing that to Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, I'm sorry. I think it's still a bigger conference, and that's why you get really scared. I mean, if you're talking about trying to get Notre Dame to the Big Ten, yeah, that'd be great. If they go to the SEC, then you're even more trouble. So, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, we're allowed to disagree, and that's fine. I just have facts to back them up. You're talking about the middle of a conference, so I'll let you continue with that. But in any case, thanks for joining me, Nick.
No problem.
We got an interesting end there. I'm a Big Ten guy. Love the Big Ten. Just I think the SEC has been better on the field, and I think that there's I don't know where you guys come up with these arguments.
I'm not arguing that the SEC hasn't been better on the field. That's not what I'm arguing.
All right, just that the Big Ten has better depth. All right, there it is. All right, well, there we go. All right, well, I'll let Nick continue that, and maybe we'll talk to Rico. We'll see. Rico is going to come join in studio for the happy hour. That's coming up next here on the Ticket on 93.7 The Ticket.
James Enterprise Incorporated, the